Chris, often when you look back on a season, there's one or two wins that stand out as a real springboard for a season. Do you think that could be one of those tonight?
It could be, and it's hard to know exactly how big it is until you get more exposed form. But we were pretty confident, even 4 rounds in, that they're one of the best teams at the moment. Now, whether that is maintained is yet to be determined. But as I think I've said a lot, and I absolutely believe it, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And they've been pretty hot. Like the game last week, against the Gold Coast was probably 2 of the hotter teams in the competition, and especially the way that they attack. It's not just their personnel ahead of the ball; it's just that their overall attack. They're a real threat, and you sort of saw that at times with Fogarty's a dead eye and Walker's first goal, and you sort of think, well, you half expect that that's going to happen a little bit when you play them. So to go in without, I find it hard to rank them, but Jack Henry, Colin Jasny and Tom Stewart have been pretty important for us for a long period of time. So it's not only a new backline for us, but it was a young one, and so I think it was good for probably both teams, but I'll just speak about ours, to play on that stage, in a really hot environment, probably was finals-like in terms of the pressure. There were some errors, but it did look for big parts of the game like 2 pretty good teams going at it. So especially for our young guys in that sort of environment, it was a really good experience. And I suppose without jumping ahead too much, like we spoke in the pre-game, about the privilege that you get to play in these sort of occasions. And our next game's Easter Monday, and it's a Geelong home game at the MCG, and there'll be over 90,000 people there. Like that's pretty cool for Connor O'Sullivan and Mitch Nevitt to think about.
They were coming off a 5-day break. A couple of players from your camp post-game reference that it was brought up. How deep did you go with that? The fact that they might have been a tiring group late.
Just stating a fact. I'm not sure I believe in it that much personally. What I do know is that we were confident that we would be running hard at the end of the game. Sometimes it's kind of broad. It is literally just that, a statement of fact. We certainly weren't watching the game thinking, they look like they're coming off a 5-day break.
How hard was it for you to plan without Stewart and Henry given their forward battle?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was difficult, and it was impossible to do without entrusting guys like Connor O'Sullivan, in those sort of roles. And I mean, we saw it at times tonight. There were. And often with the best attacking teams in the comp, it's kind of like, which one is it? Does that really good forward craft, or was the ball use just so good that it's hard for any defender to stop? I think there was a bit of both at times tonight, but we thought Koning was really solid. So a little bit in the planning, but I wouldn't credit to great coaching. I'd direct the credit to those young key defenders in particular. And because I don't need to reference, I don't think Zach Guthrie and Lawson Humphreys anymore, do I? They've been pretty solid for a while.
What was the messaging at half-time? Because there was a very high-scoring game in that first half. I think Tyrone only conceded 4 goals. I think in the second half, it looked like there was a real change in momentum coming out after half-time. Yeah,
there was. I think it's a little bit of the modern game. I'm an advocate of, I guess it's just realising the way the game's played early in the season. The conditions are generally really good. It's conducive to good scoring. But the competition being so even, I think, does mean that there are lots of momentum swings. And I think, I don't know what you were thinking, but it was a real concern for us in the second quarter. It looked like, okay, all your greatest fears are coming true. When they get some momentum and they've got some offensive flair, they can really get on top of teams. So we thought it was really important to hang in. So a few things sort of structurally, but again, I don't think it was from the box. I think it was more the players adapting to the stage of the game, sort of close enough at half-time, to back that if the game did change the way it was played and it was a bit more defensive, that we would get some okay looks the other way.
How impressed are you with Bailey Smith's input, especially coming off that injury last year?
Yeah, it's been good. I've been clear that we didn't bring him in thinking he's just going to come in and be amazing for us right from the word go. We were going to give him some room to work his way into a season after a year off with an ACL. But yeah, he's helped us. His talent's obvious, but our list management team, brought him in for a reason, and he's kind of delivering on some of those things. And he complements. I think he complements Holmes pretty well. Every team that has a really good player always says it'd be nice if you had two of them. Now, I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but they are more similar than other guys in our team. But I don't normally do this. We really like Bailey, and Max was good as well, but they weren't as good as Tom Atkins. That was a really special game, especially when the heat was on and we were being outplayed. We thought that he was the one that stood up. And I only say it because the high-profile players always get the plaudits, and I'm not sure that that's appropriate in this situation.
How important is it for someone like Tom Atkins to have a game like that then?
Well, he's been a really important player for a long time, and he'll be embarrassed that I said this because he doesn't want the external credit. He's that sort of guy. And no, it was like sometimes you have a player that sort of breaks through. No, he broke through a long time ago in terms of what we do, but he's just not as flamboyant as some of the others.
You made the sub early in that last quarter when Mullen came out. Then Stengel looked like he got another knock or he was a bit sore. Was there part of you that thought we might have gone a bit early with that?
No, Stengel had cramp, so he could have gone back on. Our numbers might have missed the last minute or two, but he was on the bench for the last 8 minutes or so. We could have put him back on, but we didn't think we needed to. And Mullen fell heavily on his knee, so he was sort of battling away, and we tried to hold it back a little bit for the reasons that you mentioned. It's amazing how often you actually make the sub for a guy that could play but is a little bit limited, and then you get a game-ending injury and you sort of rue the decision. So we were a bit cautious on that, knowing that Ted Closey was going to come in and really give us some impact. We thought he did.
Jeremy Cameron came off the ground in the second quarter when the game was kind of slipping Adelaide's way, and then came back on and seemed to have a huge impact immediately. Was there much said to him, or was there much change in
Do you want me to say it was brilliant coaching?
No, I wouldn't say brilliant coaching, but he came off the ground and his impact just seemed to live from that moment on when he came back on.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there was anything said.
Oh, no, I don't want to say, but I think I've said this before. It's not just our players. I've got admiration for the players that meet the moment, and Jeremy wasn't dominating the game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a really good example of sometimes you can not have a great game overall, but a few good moments, make it really important. And I actually thought that was a good battle between two really good players.
You mentioned Sandy Koning before, but him anchoring that back line, can you shift it around a little bit to start the year, a little bit how important a moment in his career was that in terms of being able to stop one of the best key forwards in the game?
Yeah, he's had his challenges over the last couple of years with his body, and I've got to stop referencing 22 at some point when it comes to Sam, but he was, I'm going to say 19 in his second year, maybe in 22. And the way I looked at the game, I was sort of looking around thinking, well, he's all-Australian level key defender. That was his quality, and he's just had some issues with his knee in particular, but other bits and pieces as well that's limited him. But off the back of a really good pre-season now, we think he's ready to get at least back to that sort of 22 form. But I'm happy to say he's not going to play permanently as a key defender. Like his flexibility is going to be important to us. If I had to guess, I think he'd play more back. And you need guys, unfortunately, now. Still thought wouldn't play on many guys that are taller than him. The days are gone when you can have a gun 190 centimetre key defender, because these guys are just getting so big now. So Sam's always going to have that strength for us.
Has Tom any chance of getting up to that, Tom Stewart, or is he just sort of zero cover, he's gone?
More and more we think about these things. I reckon it's one of those where he probably would have played, in the bad old days 20 years ago, where you just never missed whether you're a crook, and he would have been horrible and would have compromised him next week. And that was the sort of situation with Blitzarves as well. I I think if you pressed him, he would say, look, I don't think I could play, but we were proactive with that call, it's fair to say.
I think they had 58 points off to do turnovers at half time. What did you put that down to, and what did you need to adjust in that second half?
Yeah, that was in the game. That was the game to a certain degree. Wasn't all us just handing the ball back to them, but it's always a threat against good offensive teams. They're going to score anyway off the back of generating, their own ball movement and a bit of individual brilliance. If you hand them goals as well, then you're going to be really on the back foot. And so you always credit the opposition. Like coming out of our back line, we thought we were just trying to be a bit too precise with the ball, but their defence was good. So, their ball use out of their back half at times I thought was pretty sharp as well. So it's a fine line, that one, because you can easily sort of tip into a mode where you think we just want to clear the area and you kick it back to them all day and the ball lives in your back half. So, but you're right, that was their scoring. I thought there was some individual brilliance. As I said, I referenced Fogarty and Walker, and there was Keys' goal from the boundary. There was some pretty special stuff. It wasn't as if we were just handing them goals with really bad turnovers, but that number for us is a bad one in a half of footy. So it was good to see that arrested.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.